Donline Pros back with my fifth mock draft, and this one honestly has the chance to be the most exciting so far because now, after free agency, we now know kind of where some of these teams are shaped. So I feel like after all of the previous mock drafts, what we've done leading up to this point, this is where these picks and these things, they become a lot more reasonable and they become a lot more exact, in my opinion. And I'm more than excited to get into this thing. And I think when you start at the number one pick, we're just going to get right into this. I think that if you look at Tennessee, I don't know, with the way the NFL has been recently, I don't know if the head coach Callahan of Tennessee is going to get another shot if they're terrible this year. Because this Tennessee team, as we saw last year, there was some potential. They just simply did not have a quarterback at all. Not one in the slightest. Now, you bring in a guy like Cam Ward. I think if you're looking at sheer talent, he's the most talented quarterback in the draft. I don't know how prepared he is for the NFL. I think that's a question for another time. But if you're drafting a quarterback off potential at this point, I'd say Cam Ward is that guy. I've seen Abdul Carter. I've seen Travis Hunter to this team. It's clear what they need, and they need a quarterback. And if you're going to roll the dice on one of these guys in this draft, I would go with him. If you're drafting for potential, as a lot of teams do, you do have to understand, though, when you draft for potential, it may not work out. Historically, it's like when you're going a more potential-based guy, I'd say the hit rate is about 50%. When you're going for someone that you see it, but it might not be all there. Then you go to Cleveland here, and I think you're in a similar boat here. I think Myles Garrett, them re-signing him, if they didn't re-sign Myles Garrett, this pick all the way would be Abdul Carter. Because you find somebody to fit in that role, and you go into the full rebuild mode, then you get a quarterback next year. Now that you've brought back a guy like Myles Garrett, and you're the Cleveland Browns at this point, you're in a position where he's going to be pressuring them win now. They already have not went out and gotten a quarterback. Even if they go out and get a guy like Russell Wilson, it doesn't matter. They need a guy for the future. Shedeur Sanders, and this is what I will say about Shedeur Sanders, I think he's the most pro-ready quarterback in this draft. I'm not saying he's the best, and I'm not saying he has the most upside. I'm just saying with how he's been able to deliver the ball in the pocket at Colorado, I think that speaks for itself. If you look historically at the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and at least the best quarterbacks of recent memory, minus Joe Burrow, they have all come from challenging college situations, challenging college environments. Patrick Mahomes got blown out in some games. Shedeur Sanders did not have a lot with his roster, especially not 2 years ago. This past year didn't have a lot of depth where it really matters. They will make up for that. Cleveland actually has a pretty decent roster outside of all the junk that you see. They have a pretty good roster. I think Shedeur Sanders is the most pro-ready pocket-style quarterback in this draft. I think the Browns at this point, with them getting Myles Garrett, their hands are going to be tied. They need to get him. Then you go to the Giants here. They haven't went quarterback at this point. I see a lot of worlds where you could trade down. I don't know how much Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter does for them at this point, but I don't know what the right trade package is going to be. So then you take best available at this point. I think Abdul Carter is a slam dunk. He's a slam dunk pick, going to be a slam dunk pick. You're talking about one of two guys in this draft that is a sure thing, going to hit, was incredible at Penn State, could be that next guy edgewise in the NFL. So I do believe the Giants, if they don't get a quarterback here, will trade out of this pick, go deeper in the draft, maybe get like a Milroe later on because they need somebody. They're also in the Aaron Rodgers talks. But if they do keep this pick, Abdul Carter is debatably the most talented in the draft. Then you go to New England, and if I were them personally, I would take Travis Hunter here. Travis Hunter is the other guy with Abdul Carter that has the talent at this point to succeed in the NFL at a high point and probably is a sure thing at one of those two positions, whether it be cornerback or wide receiver. But I just feel at this point that New England is going to stick to their guns, as some would say, and take Will Campbell. Will Campbell, He is a really good tackle. I wouldn't say the term generational by any stretch, but I do think he's the best tackle throughout this draft class. Now, there's a debate for another guy, but we'll get into that later. But I think that if the idea is to protect Drake May, there's a lot of good that the Patriots have right now. They have a good head coach, and they have a good quarterback, and that's really all you need to succeed in this league. So if they want to go ahead and protect him, I think you're missing out on potentially a generational guy in Travis Hunter. But if you want to go ahead and protect him, then go ahead and do that. And if you look at Jacksonville here, it would be a really interesting situation if a guy like Travis Hunter was still sitting here. And if you look at it, I don't know how they want to use Travis Hunter. So in this theoretical, this is a way that it could happen. Like I said, I do think that the Giants will trade out of that spot. I just don't know what the team or the destination will be. I don't think Jacksonville drafts Travis Hunter either. They've been talking Mason Graham this entire time. He has been the talk of Jacksonville. This is a near guarantee that he's going to go here. And I see somehow Travis Hunter falling to the Las Vegas Raiders. How big would this be for Las Vegas, for the Raiders, for the new coach Pete Carroll, if somehow these teams, and we've seen it happen before. If you look at it, he is really getting critiqued to death right now, Travis Hunter. That's why I don't think this is off the cards at all. Like I said, I do think that the most likely scenario is the Giants will either take him or trade back. But I could see definitely a world where he falls to 6. And if he sits and he falls to the Vegas' lap, what an incredible spot this would be to be able to get him. And I do think it would be a spot where he would potentially play both ways in certain packages. He would have Brock Bowers. There would be a lot of upside possibilities. They have Geno Smith. There's a lot of possibilities. If he were to fall here, this would be unbelievable for that franchise at this point. Moving on to the Jets, I feel like at this point they're trying to revamp the culture, strengthen it. You have Justin Fields. Let's get a guy to protect him. I like the tackle out of Missouri. I think this is the right pick for them for sure. Carolina, also a pick that I near guarantee is T-Mac, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Probably, well, he is the most talented wide receiver in this. And if you look at some of his highlights, take time to look at about like his top 15 catches. He really had a ridiculous year that people, quite frankly, aren't talking about enough or as much as it needed to be said, because Arizona was pretty bad last year. But he's an incredible receiver. If you want Bryce Young to work in Carolina, you got to give him a receiver, give him an opportunity to really gel at this point. Then you go to the Saints, and I think there's a lot of different ways you go, but I think defense once again gets off the board here. And you take Walker out of Georgia. This is an underrated edge. You have everybody talking about Abdul Carter. Not a lot of people talking about Walker from Georgia over here. And I think it's one of those sneaky Saints picks that I think could pay a lot of dividends in the future. Chicago next up. And for the longest time, I had Genty mocked to the Cowboys. And if you watch this video, you're going to say, oh, well, you don't like this either. You do not like this Genty pick. You're taking him even higher when you said that he wasn't supposed to. No. The big misconception, I just thought he was a terrible fit in Dallas. If he goes to Chicago in this pick, I get it. I understand it because they had a plan. It is a plan. It's like anything you do. When there is a set executed plan, they have clearly, Ben Johnson has come in and he has clearly built the O-line and he has a certain structure of how he wants this offense to run. He has put it together, he's thought about it, and he has a plan that he's going into with. Look what he did in Detroit with Gibbs. Everybody, including me, thought that was a ridiculously terrible pick. No, it turns out that he had a plan and it has paid unbelievable dividends. So I like this move, Genty to Chicago. I still think it's high for him, but as I said, most likely, if you factor for the potential of injury, I still think Genty's going to have a really good first 3-year burst. Could be incredible. And that's what they would need him for. The Chicago team with Ben Johnson, the way he's building it, that is what they're going to need the bulk of his workload for. I like him going pick 10. Then you go to the 49ers, and you're in a position right now where the way that this is played out, you have Will Johnson sitting there. And this is, in my opinion, the best cornerback in the draft. Travis Hunter definitely has a debate, but I think when you look at Travis Hunter, I think his big draw is that he's able to play both positions in such a fluent way. I wouldn't necessarily say that he is the best at either one. I think Will Johnson is probably the best corner in this draft. And if he falls to San Francisco, they're trying to get younger. This is exactly the move that they want to do. Next, you go to Dallas. In Dallas, there's a whole lot of things you could do. I actually like a Tyler Warren pick to them. And the reason that I like this a lot is Tyler Warren seems to me like a culture guy. And this Dallas Cowboys team, they need a culture guy right now. If you look back in the day, they had the great Jason Witten, a guy that really was a beloved Cowboy for years. I think Tyler Warren could step into a similar role like that, and I think he could have a really productive. He's really close to Brock, but he's not quite the prospect that Brock Bowers is. But if you're talking about a do-everything guy, kind of one of those modern-day, futuristic, you could call it tight ends that you put in there, I like him going to Dallas here. If you're Miami, this is a no-brainer for me. O-line, O-line, O-line. When you have a quarterback like Tua, he needs to be protected. Can't allow him to take any more big hits in his career anymore. I like them going Banks. I think Banks is a really good offensive tackle going into this draft. So I think it's a no-brainer pick for Miami, especially if he falls to 13. When you go to the Colts, I'd like to see them improve that secondary a little bit more. They're looking to get better on defense. I like Barron from Texas. Not much more to say about that one. Atlanta, this is another spot where I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. I've started to actually look at more tape on Green from Marshall, and a lot of the time I'm hesitant with edge guys from smaller schools. But when you really look at the tape, I think this is a guy that could play, and I think him going to Marshall is actually a reason why he's not higher up in this. And I think 15 is the sweet spot for him right there going to Atlanta. Next, you have Arizona at 16. Mikael Williams is sitting right there. Slam dunk pick. Get your edge. You got your offensive presence in Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. This year, improve that defense. Get your guy with Cincinnati. I think it's best defensive player available. I think at this point, a lot of people will say Stewart from Notre Dame. No, that's not what I'm saying at this point. Cincinnati, as we said, they need to have one of the best defensive drafts we've seen. They should go every single pick for the Bengals, maybe aside for one or two late, should be a defensive player, and you start with James Pierce Jr. And they are incredibly lucky if this happens, because the reason that he has fallen so far is because he had that poor game against Ohio State, and people perceived it the wrong way, and he fell. He should not be available at pick 17. They're going to get a steal here. This is the first defensive guy they need to take, but they need to have. They've done their job offensively, where they have re-signed everybody and they've brought in who they needed to bring back in. They need to build the defense right now. This is a steal of a pick. The edge rusher from Tennessee, Pierce Jr. at 17. Next up, Seattle. I like them to take Josh Simmons. As I said, if Josh Simmons plays out the rest of the year and doesn't get injured against Oregon, I think it's debatable we're talking about the best tackle in the NFL draft. I really do believe that. The reason, and I understand why I would go this late at this point, but we're talking about a freak athlete here, and the injury is definitely of concern. But the more you look at it, if the injury is to not bother him in the future, you're talking about a 10-plus year starter at the tackle position if they're able to get him a cornerstone. Potentially, Tampa Bay, this will be an easy pick. Stewart, him falling this far, falls into their lap. They take him at 19. Denver, I've liked Loveland to Denver for a long time. I just think with Sean Payton, with what they're trying to do, I just think that it makes a lot of sense. Pittsburgh, originally for the longest time, I had them going with receiver. Obviously, they have the addition of DK Metcalf. They don't need another receiver at this point. You know what they'll do. They will continue to build that defense. They draft defense really well. They establish defense really well. I don't know if there's a team in the 21st century that's drafted defense better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I like them to take Grant here, a great player from Michigan. Chargers at this point, I would like them probably to get one more receiver to kind of put in Emeka Egbuka. If he's able to fall there. And Harbaugh, although he was rivals with Ohio State for years, he does like to incorporate Ohio State players because he realizes how good they are. And Emeka Egbuka really kind of reminds me of the path that Terry McLaurin took when he was coming from Ohio State, and he wasn't the most known receiver. He wasn't the best perceived receiver, didn't go that high, and has really turned into a tremendous player for the Washington Commanders. And I see a lot of that in Emeka Egbuka. These are the two players that he was number 2 to. Marvin Harrison Jr., Jeremiah Smith. One of them won the Biletnikoff, which is the best receiver in college football. The other one is being hyped up and talked about as potentially the best receiver ever in college football. That is who he's backed up both years. Any other team in college football, Emeka Egbuka is the number 1 guy. We're talking about him as potentially a top 10 pick. He sat behind, and the confidence he was able to have to do that. He's a good locker room guy. He's got, I think he's a steal anywhere past 20, and I think the Chargers, I think Harbaugh will realize that, and I think the Chargers will take him. Green Bay, you're in a position here where do you get better at receiver? I think they go defense. I think that they have areas that they need to improve. I like Walter Nolan here. Then you go to Minnesota. At this point, I would think their objective is to build that secondary. Malachi Starks is a good pick, in my opinion. Houston, there's a lot of different things you could do here with this. I say you go, though, if you're them, with the best interior O-lineman in Tyler Booker from Alabama. I think this is another guy that's getting somewhat underrated. I think this is a standard pick for them. C.J. Stroud was running for his life last year. You need more O-line help. The Rams, this is a team that I think had potentially the best offseason in the NFL. They made a lot of good moves, brought back Stafford, Devontae Adams to there, I think a good play. But aside from that, I'm seeing a lot of receiver here. I don't think they need another receiver. I could see them doing a lot of different things, but there's a lot of different options. I think that at this point, actually, I could see them going with Revel Jr. here. I really could. This is another guy that kind of had dipped, didn't have the best combine, but definitely a guy that I could see the Rams getting and turning into something pretty special. Baltimore, I like the guy from South Carolina, the safety. I think it's a position that they need to look into. That's who they're going to go with. Detroit, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could play this if you're them. But from what I've been perceived and what I've been hearing, I think they want to go in the interior of the defense, make sense, build some depth. You have guys in that lineup now, they're dealing with injuries, so I think this is a good spot. Then you go to Washington, the Commanders, and I actually like Hampton here. This running back from North Carolina, he's not going to get talked about a lot, and he's not going to get talked about enough. If you look at his tape, it's really incredible. This is a guy that in different situations could go high in this draft at this point. So I like the Commanders to take him at 29. I think it's a game-changing pick for them. And this would make their offense at this point. I know they got Debo, but if you can add that premier running back, I think it'd be a ridiculous move. Buffalo acquired, their big move was they acquired Joey Bosa. I think if you're them, they went receiver last year. I don't think it's terrible for them to go with an interior O-lineman. I think that's the right move for them. Zabel, North Dakota State, going to be a good locker room guy. I expect him to probably go to Buffalo in this spot. If you're Kansas City, I think there's a lot of ways you could go, but they've developed defense really well recently. But I think that they need to improve that O-line. I'm going to go Connerly Jr., another guy that really is dropping right now due to what we last saw him at, the Ohio State game. Really, really dropped because of that. But I think that I think they need O-line after what the Eagles did to them. Then you look at Philadelphia. I expect them to just get more defensive presence. Let me know what you thought of this post-free agency mock draft. I'm excited. I believe we're less than a month away from the draft. It's going to be really exciting, and let me know what you think.